my motto, nothing's ever holding back.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Lone Road iRacing podcast. I'm your host Guy Robertson, and this week we're diving into something every single one of us has an opinion on, whether we realise it or not. What makes a great racetrack in iRacing? It's as simple as that. Now let's think about that for a moment, because we all have our favourites, don't we? Tracks we load into and we instantly feel comfortable, confident and connected. We're hitting apexes, linking corners, racing hard, and even if you finish mid-pack, you step away thinking, yeah, that was a good race. And then there are the other tracks. The ones where it's chaos from the start, nothing quite clicks, the racing feels awkward, forced, frustrating. And by the end of it, you're wondering why you even registered for the session. So, what's the difference? Is it nostalgia? Is it famous real-world circuits? Is it tight technical layouts? Or is it long endurance monsters like the Nürburgring? Or is it something a bit deeper? Today we're going to break it all down. And later in the show we've got another iRacing Agony Uncle question. This one's from a listener called Dan, asking, how do you actually create a race session strategy? Because let's be honest, most of us aren't racing with a strategy, we're reacting. And that is where races are won and lost. So let's get into it. Let's start with something that's hard to measure, but you feel it instantly. The word is flow. Great tracks, they flow. They don't feel like a series of corners, they feel like a sequence, a rhythm, almost like a conversation between you and the car. And you're not just reacting, you're anticipating. Tracks like Laguna Seca or Alton Park are perfect examples. One corner sets up the next, which sets up the next, and suddenly you're thinking 3-4 corners ahead. When you get it right, it feels effortless. But when flow is missing, you get stop-start racing, heavy braking, awkward rotation, no rhythm, and it becomes mechanical rather than immersive. And that's where frustration starts to creep in. Because as drivers, we don't just want to drive, we want to connect. Now let's talk about racing. Because a great track isn't just fun to hot lap. It needs to produce good racing. And that comes down to balance. Take somewhere like Summit Point Raceway versus Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. You need overtaking opportunities. Yes, long straights, heavy braking zones, these actually create chances. But here's the problem. Too many opportunities, you get divebomb city. Too few, and you get a procession. The magic lies somewhere between them both, where overtakes require setup, patience and precision, not just sending it from 3 car lengths back and hoping for the best. What about punishment versus forgiveness? And this is where the track design really separates the field. Let's compare Nürburgring, Nordschleife and Suzuka circuit, or Tsukuba circuit I may say. The Nürburgring, unforgiving, brutal and relentless. One mistake and it's usually race over. Suzuka, much more forgiving, encourages learning, recovery and confidence building. So which track is better? Well, that depends. To punishing and participation drops, to forgiving and standards drop. And the best tracks, they strike a balance. They punish mistakes, but still allow you to learn from them. Let's talk about something that doesn't get enough attention: mental fatigue. Short tracks, they provide high pressure, constant traffic, and no breathing room. Long tracks like Nürburgring combined, they demand memory, focus, and a lot of patience. And this is where your Ironman FF 1600 experience fits perfectly. Because after a few laps, it's not your hands that are tired, it's your brain. And that's what makes these tracks special. What about nostalgia versus reality? And let's be honest, some tracks are popular because they're iconic, like Mount Panorama circuit or Silverstone circuit. And here's the question: are they actually great to race, or just great to say you've raced there? Because sometimes reputation actually carries a track, and sometimes actual racing quality keeps it alive. Here's one of the biggest truths in iRacing. There is no such thing as a good track in isolation. It's about the combination. Like the FF 1600 at Oran Park. Absolutely magic for me personally. And what about the GT3 at tight circuits? They cause chaos. The car there defined the experience, and when the combos work, that's when iRacing is at its absolute best. Now, let's evolve this conversation, because you can take any track and completely transform it with one thing: iRacing's weather system. Add rain to somewhere like Laguna Seca or Mount Panorama circuit, and suddenly you're not racing the track anymore, you're racing the conditions. Braking zone shift, grip disappears, the racing line becomes a liability. And now it's not about who's fastest, it's about who can actually adapt to the environment, who can think, who can survive, because one corner might be dry, the next one damp, and the next one completely soaked. You're driving one lap, but experiencing 5 different tracks all at once. And that is where great drivers separate themselves. Okay, we're going to hear from the show's sponsor now, Outlap, and we'll be right back for the second part of today's podcast. We're having a quick pause here to mention our sponsor, Outlap, who are supporting the podcast. Outlap is built around the side of sim racing we don't talk about enough: the focus, the preparation, and mental work that happens long before the race actually starts. It's not about hype or loud designs, it's about process, patience, and showing up ready. Whether that's in the rig or stepping away from it. If that side of sim racing resonates with you, you'll find Outlap quietly ticking along in the background. I want to thank Outlap again for sponsoring the podcast, and the link to their sim racing apparel store is in the show notes. Just want to say thank you for Outlap for sponsoring the podcast once again. Now let's bring some data and reality into this conversation. Because while we can all sit here and debate what makes a great track, iRacing itself gives us the answer every single week. Participation. How many drivers are signing up? How many splits are being created? And what's the strength of field? Because here's the thing. A truly great track doesn't just feel good, it gets raced over and over again. At different times of the day, across different time zones, and across different skill levels. Now think about some of the most popular tracks you raced on. You jump into a session and suddenly there is 3 splits maybe, or even 5 splits, or even up to over 10 splits. That tells you something. It tells you the track suits multiple driving styles, it produces consistent racing, and drivers feel confident enough to enter that race. Now compare that to a low participation week. You log in and there's 1 split, maybe 2 at a push. And the grids, well, they're only half full. And that's not by accident. That's the community quietly saying something about this track just doesn't work. And that's powerful metrics for iRacing to reflect on. Because participation removes bias. It cuts through nostalgia, it cuts through personal preference, and it shows you what the collective experience is. Participation isn't just about popularity, it's about repeatability. A great track is one that you enjoy once, you enjoy twice, and you enjoy it 10 times, without it becoming frustrating or predictable. Because if a track is too chaotic, guess what? Drivers avoid it. If it's too boring, people drop it. If it's too technical, people struggle with it. But if it hits the sweet spot, it becomes a weekly staple. So this is what can we say, really, that a great iRacing track isn't judged by how it feels on your best lap, it's judged by how it holds up over 20 races. And that's the big difference. Now we're going to be right back, and it's time for this week's Agony Uncle. Don't go away. This week's question comes from a listener called Dan. He says he's a relatively new iRacer who's started to be close to moving out of rookies into more competitive racing. And Dan asks, I feel like I'm just jumping into races and reacting to what happens rather than planning anything. How do you actually create a race session strategy? Well, Dan, this is one of the most important questions you can ask as an iRacer, and hopefully other listeners and viewers will agree. Because the moment you stop reacting and start thinking ahead is the moment your results start to change. And here's the truth, most iRacers just don't have a strategy. They load into a session, do a couple of practice laps, qualify, and then just kind of see what happens. And when things go wrong, it feels like bad luck. But it's actually not. It's a lack of structure. So let's build you something simple, something repeatable, and something that works on any track. And we're going to break these down into phases. Phase 1, we're naming pre-race strategy. Your race doesn't actually start on the grid, it starts the moment you enter the session. This is where so many drivers lose time without even realising it. Ask yourself about the track. Where are the dangerous corners? Where are the overtaking zones? And where do incidents usually happen? Because every track has a personality, and some are high risk early, i.e. turn 1 chaos, or they punish you later with technical sectors or fatigue that kicks in. And if you know where the problems are, guess what? You can prepare for them. Excuse me. Now bring in what we discussed earlier, Mr. Weather. Track temperature, grip evolution and drying lines. So you need to ask, will grip improve or worsen? Will braking distances change? Because if you don't think about this, you're already reacting instead of planning. Setting your goal. So this is massive and massively overlooked. Not every race is about winning, and the bulk of when you race, you won't win. So we need smarter goals. So sometimes your goal should be just to finish clean, gain I rating slowly, protect safety rating, and actually learn the track. That is the key. Your strategy should match your goal and not your ego. Now moving into phase 2, lap 1 strategy. Now we arrive at the most chaotic part of any race, lap 1. We've all been there, cars everywhere, cold tyres, drivers overcommitting, and the mistake most people make, they drive lap 1 like it's lap 10. Instead of thinking I need to gain positions, and people who have been listening or watching this podcast for a while now will know that is completely wrong, and lap 1 is all about I need to survive, because survival on lap 1 is an opportunity to actually get to lap 3 and have the opportunities further in the race. So you have to make practical adjustments for lap 1. Brake earlier than normal, leave more space than feels comfortable, and focus on exits and not entries. Avoid the middle of 3 wide situations. And here's a key line for you listeners. If it looks like it might go wrong, guess what? It probably will. A big insight here is most positions are actually gained on lap 1, but guess what? Not from overtakes, they're from avoidance and keeping your car out of the pits. Phase 3, we're naming mid-race strategy, and this is where racers are really decided, not in the chaos, but in the calm and in the rhythm. Constantly ask who is faster than me, who is slower than me, and who is making mistakes. Because racing isn't just about your pace, it's about reading the race around you. So keep checking your relative. Are you gaining lap by lap on drivers in front, or is somebody behind you gaining behind you? So that's where this race strategy really starts to kick in. And what about choosing battles? And it's actually one of the biggest skill gaps in iRacing. Knowing when to fight and knowing when to yield. If a driver is clearly faster than you, let them go. And actually learn from them. Stay within range, because fighting the wrong battle costs you time, positions, and often SR. And another faithful on my podcast, consistency over speed. And this is where you can drop a powerful truth. 3 consistent laps beat 1 fast lap and 2 mistakes. And it's absolutely true. Most drivers lose positions because they push too hard, overdrive, make small errors, and those errors add up. Now, there's also something to remember around mental discipline, and mid-race is where frustration builds, you lose some focus, and mistakes start to creep in. Your strategy must include staying calm, resetting your focus, and driving your race. Phase 4 is all about the end of race execution. So we've now reached the final phase of the race, where pressure returns. Defending position becomes a pressure moment, like chasing someone down and actually managing a gap. And this is where drivers often undo all their good work. So we touched on it earlier, smart decisions. Ask yourself, is this move worth the risk? What do I gain versus what can I lose? Because one mistake now erases 15 minutes of good driving. And then there's the discipline factor. And this is where you say to yourself, the last 2 laps are where smart drivers finish races and impatient drivers throw them away. Okay, now we're going to bring it all together. Add weather into this and everything changes for the strategy for the race. Because your braking point shift, grip levels evolve, and racing lines change. So should your strategy. It cannot be fixed and it has to be fluid. Key line here is, in changing conditions, the best strategy is the ability to adapt. So we're just going to touch on a few of the common mistakes, because every listener will recognise themselves here at some point. Going into races with no plan at all. Overdriving early and making mistakes. Fighting every battle and ignoring conditions. And letting your emotions take over. And the big one, trying to win the race on every lap. So there's something called the 3 C's framework, and it can give something simple to remember. Calm, stay composed and don't panic. Consistency, lap times win races and not hero moments. And context, understand what's happening around you. If you stay calm under pressure, drive consistently, and understand the race around you, you will beat faster drivers. So Dan, strategy isn't about being the fastest driver on the track by a long shot. It's about being the most aware, the most patient, and the most disciplined. And if you can build that into your racing, you'll you'll start seeing results that don't just rely on speed. So, we're going to summarise today's podcast. So, what makes a great iRacing track? Clearly, it's not just layout, not just history, and not around difficulty. It's how it challenges you, how it rewards you, how it adapts, especially when weather is in play, and most importantly, it's whether it makes you want to come back again and again and again. If you've enjoyed today's episode, make sure to follow and share with your fellow iRacers. And if you want to get involved with the show, or you want to be a guest, or even just send in an Agony Uncle question, send it in to the show's email in the show notes below. Because these are the conversations that make us all better drivers. Until next time, keep it clean, keep it smart, and I'll see you on the track soon. And don't forget to say hello. Happy iRacing, and I'll see you next week.
Whatever it takes, we're racing, we're in the zone. Whatever it takes, we push hard, never alone. I'm in the cockpit, the engines roar, hear me now. We're racing circles, got a hustle, made a vow. Chasing victory, it's all or nothing on the track. Speed is my motto, nothing's ever holding back. Whatever it takes, we're